Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye, you'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this your podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, the show where we like to find the best game within a really specific category that we've made up for the purposes of starting arguments performatively and doing them and recording them and sending them out on a feed every week. It's a podcast. It's what happens. This week, we're looking for the best game with a pointless feature that someone spent way too much time on. Lots of different candidates for this because games are so difficult to make and so sprawling as projects that things end up in the design document that make perfect sense in the context of several other things that are in the design document. But by the time the actual game comes out, all those things have disappeared, right? And then you just get this feature that's just on its own and doesn't make sense. That's one way this sort of shit can happen. But it's a miracle that video games work at all, let alone have any narrative consistency. So let's explore that. I'm joined today by Mark Warren and Tom Orry, and also returning guest Steve Burns from My Life, etc., and Tom's Life, as it turns out. But not Mark's life. But despite this, Mark is consistently furious with Burns.
He was giving it a big one on Slack, wasn't he? He was giving it the big one on Slack all week.
Yeah. He's like,
it's only Monday, but all of this week.
When Mark heard that he was not going to be on the 100th episode Quickfire special and that Steve Burns was, along with Owen O'Donnell, Richie Morgan, etc., Mark was like, I can't believe you've filled the podcast with your mates instead of your colleagues. That's an impression. He's from Newcastle, not Wales. And so that's where it all started, really. But instead of being annoyed at me for arranging all this, it's manifested as Mark being annoyed with Burns a lot. So.
Yeah, I would never direct any anger towards you in any way. That would never happen.
Why not?
I'd just say as well, as we just said, I'm absolutely fine with this. Like, I still harbour, I'd say maybe animosity's too strong, but maybe not to video gaming's Andy Kelly, because Andy Kelly, I used to love PSM2 magazine, which was a PS2 magazine way back in the day, and he applied for a job there, which was a competition in the mag, but it's just a bit of a stunt, and he got it. And despite the fact that I didn't even apply for it for a good, I'd say 8 years before I met him properly, I was like, fucking hate that guy, man. I was like, what's that about? And it's like, Steve didn't even apply for it. It's like, is that the point?
Yeah.
Broadly, yes. Yeah. But emotionally, no.
Yeah, and now he's cutting about in New York and doing
writing
books,
stuff, taking photos.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about proper inside baseball industry stuff, so we probably better nix the Andy Kelly chat. But he's a good bloke.
Oh, keep it. It's fine. It's fine.
I thought you were going to talk about Lorraine Kelly, Burns. I think like your long-standing nemesis.
Well,
it's a bit. Is she still your nemesis? Because she's getting on a bit now, isn't she?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say now. Your new corporate overlords. Let's.
Right.
There may be relationships that we don't want to jeopardize.
Yeah.
But,
Tom, we got any sponsored content with ITV?
I don't. Who knows?
We're going to be on This Morning going on about fucking Far Cry 6. All right. Okay. Right. First
5
of all,
minutes. That intro. 5 minutes.
Yeah. People.
Not a single thing's
People
happened.
love it. People love it. There was a comment on the pod, a really pithy comment on last week's podcast with the timestamp 6 minutes 50. Podcast actually starts here, by the way.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
It's like,
we are nowhere near as bad as a lot of podcasts it comes to that.
I'm amazed anyone gives a shit about the actual game part of this. I thought it was just anyway.
You got any snacks, Jim?
We're doing a snack check. Everyone get your snacks out, right? Got pretzel. Got a caramel donut, right? This is from Lidl, Tom.
You can't say the name, Jim. I was
you
going
love,
to say, don't
it's
say
from
the name.
a certain German supermarket. You love keeping in with the theme of Gamescom. And a box of Rennies. So,
nice.
It's all in good fun, isn't it? So, yeah.
Just the rest of us can survive a podcast without snacks.
It was pointed out that I don't actually eat them. They're just there.
I didn't eat the Monster Munch from last time. I ate those days later, Tom. So, you know. Right, sorry. Okay, so the best game with a pointless feature that someone spent way too much time on. First of all, I want to hear from... we'll save whichever fucking Metal Gear Solid game Burns has picked. Mark, what would you like to say? Not to Burns, but just as your submission.
You got a written statement you're going to read out?
No, I've not, and I've not. Unlike Jim, with all of the food that he's randomly showing off that he owns with his IGN money now. I don't have any props this time, but what I do have is a video game, and that video game is Disco Elysium.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like Disco Elysium. I'd argue it's pretty close. It's pretty close to perfect. It's in my top 5 games of all time, alongside a bunch of other pretentious shite and Burnout Paradise for some reason. But the reason that I've picked it for this is because of the collage mode. So this was added in 2023 via an update, and it's basically it's like a photo mode, but it's slightly more advanced because you can set up different scenes. The thing that everybody did with it straight away was make Kim and Harry kiss, because that's what you've got to do. But yeah, it basically lets you set up kind of postcard style scenes and pose the actors and stuff. The problem, and what makes it fit this, is that I can guarantee you nobody's played it for more than 2 minutes because of the time that it came out. Now, since Disco Elysium came out, as has been well documented, there was a documentary by someone that I know none of you will ever have heard of, talked about it. But basically, since the game came out, there's been a massive tiff between the studio and the people who actually wrote Disco Elysium about whether they'd get to make another one, and it's just gone downhill into the kind of mudslinging that just makes you think, oh Christ, what is this? So that came out after there'd been the original tiff between the company and the 3 main writers of the original. They'd left. So at the time it came out, it was pointless because nobody played it, because all the comments on the announcement of it are people going, please bring the original writers back. And things have only gotten worse since then. There's been reports this year that basically the rest of the team's kind of been laid off, and it's looking like the only way we're going to get a Disco Elysium 2 is if somebody running Zaum has some kind of epiphany that makes them feel like they have to make it. But yeah,
Sounds terrible. Terrible. I'm really sad. So it's a photo mode, right? You're talking about a photo mode? Yeah.
It's more advanced than that. It's not just your standard, take away the UI elements and there you go. It is slightly more advanced.
Sounds like it does have a point,
game.
Though.
What's the Sony zombie game called? Dead Days
Gone. Burn. Sorry, you have to unmute yourself.
Days Gone. You could remove the motorbike, right? So the guy was just flying through the air. Can you do that in Disco Elysium?
I mean,
the guy just flying along in a seated position.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the poses that's in this.
I mean, it sounds not pointless then, doesn't it?
Mm.
Well, like I said, my argument is that the definition of pointless is people don't use it. And nobody's used this because it just reminds them of all the shit that's happened with Disco Elysium since it released.
I never finished Disco Elysium, and after all that shit happened, I found it left a bit of a sour taste in the mouth to go back.
I think what you've done here is you've assumed that general normal people care about the stuff that you read about on Twitter, and they don't care. They don't care about any of this. They're just happily
Mark's beat his Fallout mods, so he's well versed in stuff nobody gives a shit about.
The way I would defend it is that I think the general audience actually cares about it arguably more than I do, because I can still go back and replay the game and not feel like I can't finish it because of all of the stuff that's happened. I just can't play the photo mode because it reminds me of it. So I would say I'm less invested than other people.
That's a really thin distinction. But yeah, I agree with you though. I think it is pointless to make like if they did DLC, for example, if some new team came along and did stuff for that, I don't know how you would do DLC for that game, but if that happened, I would argue, probably pointless. Anyone who's invested enough in that game, who would have cared about extra content or extra modes or whatever, like you say, probably doesn't give a shit anymore because of everything that's happened. I get it, Tom. I think you're right, and I think you're being very unkind, actually. I think
I'm being unkind.
Yeah, I think it's. What do you mean?
What?
There's,
It just sounds just like it's not. I said it's not a pointless feature.
Well, it is pointless because, as Mark said, it's pointless because it's a dead game, isn't it?
Is it though?
Yeah.
Isn't the point with Disco Elysium that most of the people who really like Disco Elysium really like it?
And they're communists.
When I was at New York Comic Con last year, the best outfit, cosplay, whatever you want to call it, was someone as the main dude from Disco Elysium, and like by a mile. It even had like the personality, shall we say, not to talk, looked like he'd been through some stuff. So I can completely understand that, it's if you like that game, then there's especially with its themes, there's a strong chance you'll be keyed into the bullshit or not around it. So, It reminds me of BioShock 2 coming out and people going, it's not by the same dude, I'm never playing it, and it's better. And everyone's like, well, nah, but still, they will never accept it. So I agree, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It must be odd for him to agree with it, considering he's your nemesis.
BioShock is also...
Well, that's fine. You can agree. It's like, horseshoe theory, isn't it?
It's that meme. The worst guy you know just made a great point.
I think about that every time I'm brushing my teeth. So,
Fair enough. All right, Tom. What? How have you crowbarred Football Manager into this? Are we still doing that?
No, that was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Well, I didn't have much time, Jim, did I, to come up with anything? Because I was on a call with you. I was on another call.
Excuse me.
And then I had to
this
deal with some
topic
stuff.
was announced in the work Slack about 6 days ago.
Yeah, but it was the way you announced it. It was just like a question, like vaguely suggesting a thing, rather than going, "This is it." You've got to be a bit more like
never
the
commit,
law.
because then people can. Because if you do it in such a way that people can blame you for it, always just make it a suggestion, and then it's everyone else's fault if it goes.
Correct answer.
I never said we were doing that. Everyone just assumed.
Right.
Anyway,
so
it's going well so far, though.
Anyway, I was thinking about this, and we were talking about this the other week, right? It was about like flushing the toilet in Duke Nukem or whatever, right? That kind of thing that you love, Jim. You love all this stuff. I'm pretty sure this is the same topic we've already covered, in fact. But
mate, I love flushing toilets in Duke Nukem.
So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, right, so there's that kind of stuff. There's like turning the taps on. There's like running a shower. All this kind of stuff.
Flipping
like
the toilet rolls around in
dog.
Starfield.
Petting the dog's a good one, right?
Yeah.
All the games have to pet the dog now because you get a bit of marketing out of that as well, right? You get a bit of the Twitter account posts it. It's like, oh, that's good. That's added a few people's on a wish list because of that. And I was thinking about this and all these things. I was like, oh, what if actually, Jim, there is no pointless feature in a video game? What then, Jim? What if every feature has value and therefore this topic is nonsense and I win by default because everyone's going to suggest something that actually has a point to it? Because even the pointless things like Mark's talking about here, right? We've just talked about on a podcast with hundreds of thousands of listeners. We've promoted Disco Elysium, right, to people. So that feature, therefore, that Mark doesn't care for, has value in that it's made us talk about it and therefore raise the awareness of the game to all these hundreds of thousands of people, right?
This is too meta game even for you, man.
So, so my point is there is no pointless feature. Like we had a moan the other week about the horse balls, right, in Red Dead 2. Yeah, and there was an argument that was just an example of the excess pointlessness that Rockstar put into their things, but it clearly wasn't true because people are still talking about that, and it gives the impression that Rockstar is this studio or group of studios that go so extreme in the way they develop things that you expect that kind of stuff, and it is a talking point in itself, right? So, no. You're
just not going to submit one.
No, not submitting a game.
You can't.
Because I think just the question itself is massively flawed. I don't want to be part of it.
Every single one of these is based on a massively flawed question. You can't just not do
into this corner, Jim, because I didn't have time to think of something, right? So I had to think of something without thinking of something.
You had almost a week to think of something,
that's why
and you could have fallen back on Football Manager, as you've done in the past.
You forced me into the correct answer. So that's on you. That's your problem.
Are you submitting Football Manager?
No.
I'll accept Football Manager. I'm not accepting features. Nothing.
As I said, all games, every feature has value. Because someone somewhere will go, oh, that's interesting, and they'll do a little. They might tell their mate about it.
That's the twist, isn't it? That is the point of the topic.
No, I think the point is you've once again failed to come up with a good topic, and I've gone around you to make you look like an idiot.
Well, this is complete rubbish, because you can't just not submit.
Why not?
You can't.
Do we ever make the rules? Have we written them down anywhere?
We never codified the rules, no. But I think it's probably an accepted convention that you have to submit a game.
It's like the Pirates of the Caribbean films, right?
Yeah.
Because I've watched those recently because my son wants to watch them.
Okay.
And they've got the pirate code, right?
Mark, what is name one of the Mark? You played one of the Pirates of the Caribbean games, didn't you?
Yeah, I should have won on this podcast with one and didn't.
What game was that?
It was Lego Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm submitting that for Tom, right? Because
no, my point isn't the games, Jim. It's that the pirate code is more of a guideline. It's not an actual set of rules. There's no point in
continuing. Speaking about not having a bloody point, if you're not going to submit a game, so I'm going to pick one for you. Tom has submitted Lego Pirates of the Caribbean.
It's quite good.
All right,
that's a good choice.
Okay. Has it got any pointless features in it, Mark? Can you just do Tom's for him?
It's a Lego game. There's bound to be tons.
According to what was said when I raised it on this podcast, the entire game is pointless because apparently it's just a roller coaster ride of Lego with pirate trappings, and therefore isn't real piracy.
Yeah, we go.
I don't agree with, but that was why I lost.
Perfectly, so. It's the kind of argument that Tom would come up with, though, isn't it? All right, okay, Tom, you're submitting Lego Pirates of the Caribbean on the basis that it's just a really soulless sort of theme park, themed around Pirates of the Caribbean, and is therefore a pointless game. Burns, what is the best game with a pointless feature that someone spent way too much time on?
It's funny if Burns has the same answer as me now.
Nobody spent any time on nothing, did they?
No, I mean, I've got to say is that I find it interesting that we were talking about the codifying the rules of this and then arguing about them. Is like as soon as you get bought by a US firm, you're into full unitary executive constitutional fucking got to go through, and have a little look and be like, well, that does originalism versus. Look, I kind of agree with what you're saying. And I like that you've wound people up by saying it. So that's actually a win for me. The obvious answer is Metal Gear Solid 2 for me. Like anything after the tanker is just going, man, this is the biggest load of shit I've ever played. But then, of course, using Tom's rhetorical arguments, I think that, there is something to it because, it does have a point per se. It's just not the one that they were going for.
There we go.
They should have stuck with what they were going to do and called it Metal Gear Solid 3 and have it set in the Middle East with arms inspectors. But, there was a bit of a problem before it released, so I think, yeah. So that's the obvious one. In terms of, pointless features, but again, I'm actually proving Tom's point here. I feel like I'm in some sort of reverse courtroom fucking drama here. It's like I'm Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. But slightly more so. In the original Hitman 2, which is a strange thing to say, there was a cheat code for punch Ali mode. It was called, so you could punch you could punch people. Now, in a game about being really stealthy, like running up and twatting everyone like that, isn't necessarily the way it's played. But in the first level proper, the one set in the Godfather style gangster's mansion, by his office out the back, he's got a big balcony. and then there's a swimming pool behind it. So you turn on punch mode. We found out when I was at uni. Obviously, not much to do. Turn on punch mode. Turn on slow motion, and turn on invincibility, and then alert everyone in. And then because the balcony only has one single door at each end, so they have to come through single file, you could do Hitman Olympics into the swimming pool. So you could invent your own little diving competition, and everyone would fly off in slow-mo, and you give yourself a point. I mean, it's a lot better if you're on drugs. But the, when they're rotating and they go in, and then suddenly it gets really heated because men particularly are fucking arseholes about this sort of thing. And this pointless feature about punching someone, which you probably just left in because they couldn't be asked to remove the animation without breaking the way the gun is held, has now turned into an actual fist fight because your mate at uni has decided that his double fucking twist pike into the pool in slow motion is better than yours. So I think Tom's correct, really. But those are the pointless things that I would say.
Jim is reeling here. I can see
he
in his
is
face.
He's
He's slowly thinking, right, he gave it a big one a second ago how I was wrong. Yeah. Now he's thinking, actually, am I going to have to let him win?
It's like my cousin Vinny, Jim. You know. You've been fucked here by an idiot, me, on behalf of someone who's actually making a good point.
I feel like Mark's cat has turned up to sort of as a witness for the prosecution.
Can I tell you what's happened here? So on that 100th episode, I started off by having a rather unveiled dig at you for your dog having barked during that episode that you were on.
She'll be back in a minute, and it's going to be worse. So,
over the past week or so, the cat has taken to sitting next to me while I work, and is always just sleeps the whole time, never a peep. And literally, we've started recording, and she's decided that she wants to be out of the room, and is now making noise and being a nuisance. So this is just irony.
Yeah, she's been called
really handing me one.
She's the tire expert in My Cousin Vinny, isn't it?
That shit, etc.
I'm not the judge. I'm the guy in the neck brace that owes him money. All right, okay. Let's.
Have you got a pick? Have you got a pick?
Yeah, she's got to pick one.
Yeah, it's probably Stray or something like that. But she's not playing ball. She's turned around and is showing me a bottom. So
that's good. Fuck off, tail. That is. Right. Classic. Okay. Let's pick something then. Okay, so we've got Disco Elysium from Mark. We've got Lego Pirates of the Caribbean from Tom.
We haven't.
We've got Hitman 2 from you, Burns?
Hitman 2, 2002.
The punch in that specifically, yeah?
Yeah, the punch mode, which serves no purpose apart from inventing games to destroy your friendships with. So
that sounds
pretty
great.
Good reason.
That sounds great. Well, we can discount Lego Pirates of the Caribbean because I think it's a bit mean to write off an entire game as pointless, Tom, which is what you said earlier. So it's really between Disco Elysium and Hitman 2's punch mode, and I feel like I really like the meta angle of Disco Elysium being
what you like Mark's better angle, but you don't like my
I don't like your meta angle because it really threw a spanner in the works. It's because it destroys the entire fucking conceit of this show that I've got a host. So
but it'd be fine. Next week I'll get back onto being normal again. But like I said, you made me do it by only telling me about 2 minutes before we recorded. Just showing off that
Burns is here. Right. So, what was I saying? Right. Okay. So, yeah, I really like the meta angle of essentially after a certain point, as a going concern, Disco Elysium is now pointless. It's effectively dead, and anything the owners do with it, whether it's DLC, re-release, new content, even like a hotfix, or whatever, it's ultimately a completely pointless endeavor. They have destroyed it as a going concern because of all the shenanigans. Because the only people who care about that game are I think for the most part, most of that game's audience are involved and savvy enough to be aware of the stuff going on behind the scenes. It's that sort of game, right?
Yeah.
It's like Red Dwarf fans all know the fucking drama, you know. It's like if you're that into Red Dwarf, you're gonna know stuff about it. I think it's that sort of thing. It's that sort of cult thing. People have a level of
I might have
ownership
to
of
stop
it.
you there, Jim, because I'm pretty sure my Sainsbury's delivery has just arrived.
Okay.
All right, so I'll be back. Just talk amongst yourselves for a minute. All right.
Should we leave this in? Fucking hell.
I'm gonna leave this in. I'm gonna have a little wee, but I'll take this off because there's been too many hot mic incidents in my own life so far.
Yeah. It's all right.
Mainly with Jim.
All right.
As someone who's previously organised a mutiny during the podcast, it's interesting and starring in one where somebody else is doing one, because I feel compelled to support his cause, but also if I do that, I'm pretty much guaranteed to lose because it's Tom. So I'm kind of torn here, and I'll be honest, you're not helping me case that I've spent the entire podcast sniggering at you. Because
can I put a screenshot of you and the cat in the Slack?
Oh, I am getting filthies. Feel free to. I'm getting the biggest filthies in the world, and I don't want to let her out, because if I do, it stops being funny. So she's got to stick around till the end now, I think.
That's amazing.
You usually love being in here. What's your problem? You're usually asleep the whole morning. Did you get sleep last night when you're usually awake?
I'm back.
Good.
That was what was getting delivered. If I hadn't agreed with you, I'd have made some pithy comment about it being your argument getting delivered, but I can't now. So what was it? Because it can't have taken that long. I want to know what it was.
It was just all my food shopping.
What are you talking about? Hold on. So is it just like?
Did you get a pretzel?
No
you got
pretzels.
freezer stuff, so that's just defrosting now, is it?
No, I put the freezer stuff away. There was only 2 items for the freezer.
Oh, okay. All right, fair
The
enough.
rest of it, I've got my son doing.
What freezer?
Okay.
Oh, it's good when they're old enough that you can do stuff.
I mean, he's moaning about it, but
Well, kids moan about everything, don't they? What did you get? Fish fingers,
nope,
chicken dippers.
nope.
Magnums.
Most don't eat meat or fish at home.
Oh, okay. Meat-free corn.
Got a load of meat-free mince. No, I don't like corn very much.
You got meat-free mince. Have you got the Sainsbury's own brand?
No, this isn't mince or whatever it's called, and this isn't beef burgers.
I don't like that
good.
brand.
It's my favourite non-meat brand.
Yeah, well, it's my least favourite. So what should we make of that? Anyway, so what was I going to say? Yeah, so given that Disco Elysium is, as a going concern, dead as a don't, I think it's reasonable to say that anything that the current owners do on it is pointless fundamentally. The kind of people who are into Disco Elysium are the kinds of people who are going to know what's going on in the background. They're going to know about all the issues, all the people having fallouts, people being fired, etc. And I mean, what was I saying before you got the delivery? It's like Red Dwarf fans, isn't it? Like Red Dwarf fans, if you're an actual fan of Red Dwarf, you're gonna know about all the stuff between sort of Rob Grant and Doug Nearly. You're gonna know about the time where Robert Llewellyn went to America to film the American pilot, and the rest of the cast were a bit miffed about it, and all that stuff is just going to be in the ether, isn't it? So I think it has affected the prospect of a sequel, not least because the talent just isn't there anymore with the owners, but just because it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. So I do take the point, Mark, and Hitman 2 punching mode. I mean, Burns, you fucked yourself there by essentially agreeing with Tom that there is no such thing as a pointless feature in a video game.
Well, that's fine, because at least I can be open about these things rather than fucking trying to finagle whatever shit you're up to in a bid to needle everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I think Tom also sort of put his foot in it as well, and I think Mark has stumbled upon something.
Mark's choice is just
Mark
dullest
has
choice,
stumbled
right?
upon a pointless
It's just-
feature in a
it's a
video game that is
photo
even
mode,
pointless by your
and he's attached
standards.
his own personal baggage to it.
No, it's not
It's
personal
like the story.
baggage.
It's just as disappointing. It's so disappointing. It's like when he told us that story about how he was trapped in his room.
Yeah,
And what actually happened was his house had a power cut and he didn't want to go out in the dark.
yeah.
That was it. That was the story. So this is similar to that level of like,
Yeah. Do you remember that time you saw a story about where you saw a rat eating a burger?
Did I?
Yeah, you saw a rat eating at the side of the road eating a burger.
Was this the one after the bird flew under the buggy I was pushing?
Yeah.
It's like Star Wars style swoop down. It literally flew under the buggy and up the other side.
That was an entire story of yours. We all had to sort of.
That was a good story. You remember that now. You're like, it's a good story.
Yeah.
Mark's stories are more like, you're like, this is going to be a good story. It's going to be great. And it's like, the light didn't work. That's like this pick.
These are the two tacks I've taken. Either go off on one, usually with a story that is boring, or do what I've done today, which is say something that's technically correct and a bit dry. So those are your two choices of the versions of me that I can be. I'm too limited to be anything else.
I think Tom's frustrated because you remind him of him. Okay, so I think Disco Elysium has won it for me. And
the comments are going to go wild with this, just let you know.
But the comments will prove the point, won't they?
Yeah.
Because Disco Elysium is the like I think Mark's absolutely right on Disco. Like now, I'm more interested in the behind the scenes drama than I am with this fucking. So I'm going to go off and I'm going to read through it all because I saw it like bubble up at the time. But I'm going to have a look and I'm going to be like,
you're not going to play the game though, are you?
I'm going to fucking play video games, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't have time for that. Definitely don't have time for that. So
yeah, exactly.
I bought it twice already. I still haven't played it. I'm not going to now.
I bought it twice.
So you're proving the point there, Tom.
Well, it's not because of this. It's that I'm not playing it out of a protest against this podcast rather than what happened.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. If you want to hear an extended version of this podcast where we will go on to my pick and these three will take it apart, then you need to be a paying subscriber of the Best Games Ever podcast. We call you bestie if you're one of those, which is a funny thing that Tom made up. Tom, if people want to be a bestie, what do they need to do?
Why don't you ask Mark what you have to do?
Mark, if people want to be a bestie, what do they need to do?
Here we go. I'll write this down for the appraisal.
Yep. You go to the website.
Which website?
There's VG247.com.
Yeah.
There's a drop down menu in, I want to say it's possibly the top right corner, or there's a bit that says support us. It's one of those two options. And you click that and you put in all your information and then shaboom.
How much
or at least that's a simplified version.
How much does it cost?
$2.99.
Yeah, that's about right. All the information's essentially correct there, Tom. It's gone well, isn't it? Abandoning your duty to.
It's fine. I only took it on as a duty because you always messed it up.
Putting Mark on the spot there. I think Mark did a good job, all things considered. We should have asked.
We made it into a little bit. And that people will be remembering that now.
Yeah.
But I remember when Mark did that bit where he told us about how to subscribe.
Yeah.
And they'll go, I'll subscribe now.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Burns, if people want to be a bestie, what should they do?
Well, you've got to go on to VG247.com and then find, through your magical eyes, the support tab, if it is a tab, or maybe it's a button, and press the fucker, and then open your fucking wallet, or if you've got PayPal or it's saved in your browser, click yes, then forget about it, then forget to cancel it. Yeah. And then in a while after that, wonder why you're funding some sort of like massive corporate entity. But that's fine because we're all doing that now. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's like, and then, you'll get fun stuff afterwards. Whatever insane, like pathologically demented shit you're about to say is worth that money.
Yeah. Tom, do we take PayPal?
Don't know.
Right. Well, we might do. All right. Okay.